Welcome back to the channel, fellow aviators. Today in episode 4, we are going to finally move on from the freelance mode to the advanced career mode. To do that, we come over to the very right side where appropriately it's called change mode. We can click there and you can read that at your leisure. But the thing I'd like to point out is down at the bottom it says, when transitioning to advanced career mode, your company will receive a special cash bonus equal to double your current cash balance. So we look up at the top and we've seen from all the flights I've done prior to this, I have a little over 13,000 in cash, and I am at level 2, which will be important here in just a moment. So at this point, let's go ahead and push to unlock. Okay, you have earned 13,386 in credits. Transitioning to the advanced career mode will grant you an additional 13,387 and the 10,000 credits, owner's equity, for a total of 36,000 in credits. So when you first start off, if you'd like to move directly to advanced career mode, all you're going to receive will be the 10,000 in credits. We also have the option to start directly in airliner mode, which will provide the cash needed to immediately rent an aircraft like a 737 or an A320. Choosing this option will place you on a separate leaderboard. Okay, and there's a click check mark right there for us to do, which we're not going to. So let's go ahead and accept that. Advanced career mode unlocked. We are now at our new login page. In the center, there are 9 boxes that are shortcuts to various pages that we will use throughout OnAir. Top left, current cash. We've seen this page before. Let's head back. But you'll also see we now have access to more data and information as we begin to run our company. On the right-hand side, you see a list of expenses that we are now going to start incurring as we begin to move forward. From here, we'll hit the green home icon and we return back to the main home page. At the bottom of the page, we see that I'm level 2. If I click on this box, it brings me to the company skill tree. On the left-hand side are the 4 major categories: bank loans, FBO agreements, passenger license, and hiring agreements. Hiring agreements would be if we would like to hire and run AI pilots, which we will do at a later point. I'm also looking to start as a cargo operation, so I'm going to skip passenger license for now. So I think we'll just go back to the home page. And at the very bottom, we see tips, first aircraft, and logistics center. So let's press on aircraft market. And just like in freelance mode, it is easier if you're already logged into the aircraft you wish to purchase. There's over 1,400 different aircraft that you could possibly choose from. Since I'm not loaded up, when I press it, it says the current position of your aircraft is undefined. Make sure to load the aircraft at any valid airport. So let me log into Microsoft Flight Simulator, into the Bonanza, which I think I'm going to start with, and then we'll take a look at purchasing or renting our first aircraft. Okay, I've now logged into Microsoft Flight Simulator, and now when I click the green button, it automatically brings up the Bonanza. There's a bunch of useful information here in terms of what class, how much fuel, what the max payload is. But what we're interested in is the display, sell, rent, and lease offers. Let's click that button. And now we have a list of planes that are eligible to either buy, lease, or rent. So what's the difference? If we lease an aircraft, that is a 4-week commitment, and I don't think I would like to do that. So let's look and find one that has a rent price. We'll come down and click this one. We see it's going to cost us $520 per hour. The renting bond is 10 hours worth, or $5,200, and we'll get that back at the termination. Or we can lease it for $2,640. So let's go ahead and rent the aircraft. And this is very important. since we're starting with a cargo operation. These are the seat configurations of the aircraft. Right now, they are all in economy. We could switch that out. We could take one out of economy and put it one into first class. As you can see though, it's not exactly a one-for-one transition, so we'd have to take out an additional seat. But since we would like to do cargo, let's take all the seats out. And you see we gain an extra cargo capacity of 315 pounds. That's definitely what we'd like to do. So let's go ahead and pay the $5,200 credit bond and start the rental. We have now rented our very first aircraft. You will notice though that the plane is not located at our home airport. Instead, it's located at Sierra Kilo Delta November. So once again, let's back out, hit the green home icon. And now once we return to the main page, you see that we actually have one pending job. Let's click the Jobs button. And now we have a job that takes us from where the aircraft is located back to our home base. Additionally, when we look up at the job description, you see a gold trophy icon. These provide extra money and experience. So whenever you see these, you definitely want to take those jobs. So let's come over here to the plus, the fly now, and now we can prepare the flight data. And we've been to this screen before. No changes here. We see we have 189 pounds of cargo. We have 839 pounds of available cargo capacity, but let's increase our fuel capacity a little bit to make sure we get here without any issues. I know you're thinking, well, why don't we just fill the plane all the way up with fuel and fly it home? Well, remember, we're now paying for this fuel, and if we have to dump it to accept another mission for our cargo, we don't get that money back. So now we can go ahead and validate our fuel and payload, just like we did before. All right, through the miracle that is modern editing, we can go ahead and select the Fly Now button, as I've already placed the aircraft at the departure airport. So we'll launch the aircraft tracker, and then we will start tracking. Okay, we are all set and ready to go, and now I will hop into the aircraft, get it prepped for departure, and I will meet you just before we're getting ready to take off. All right, welcome back. We are on the runway. We have an altitude set at 2,500 feet. We have 100 knots, which is VY on the Bonanza set. We have the transponder on. Take our track IR on. Got our flaps set, so I think we are ready to go. So let's get out of here. All right, coming about 75 knots. A little back pressure. Let's get those stupid bars off. I did that. Positive rate. Gear up. Flaps up. Autopilot. Should be some nice flying out here around the mountains. All right, let's start a slight turn to the right. Back off the prop just a bit. And away we go. Check that the flaps are up. Perfect. And coming up on our initial altitude. Beautiful morning to be flying. Little low-lying clouds. So I'm looking forward to flying here down in South America. I don't have a whole lot of experience. I mentioned in my last episode, I had gone through Panama. I had worked down in Mexico, but that was off a tuna boat, so I was always out to sea flying helicopters. So don't have a whole lot of South American flying. I have flown down, obviously, with my airline down in Costa Rica. About as far south as I have gone. My airline decided that they are going to start flying down to Colombia. We've already signed an agreement. Flying out of San Juan, and as everyone knows, San Juan is my home away from home, so maybe I'll go down and pick up some extra flights. We'll see. Might be interesting. We'll have to see if they're actually overnights, though. All right, selected nav or GPS mode. Hopefully should just bring us nice and smooth. I think I mentioned in the last episode that I wanted to demonstrate how to use the Garmin 1000 so you can shoot a visual approach into any airport that's in the database. So let me cover that right now before we get too far down the road. So what you want to come down here is go to procedures, enter for approach. Obviously Cartagena has a ton of actual approaches, but when you get to some of the smaller airports that you may be flying to, you may find out that there actually is not a ILS or an RNAV or LOC, anything. But there should almost always be a visual approach. So we'll just rotate till we get down to visual approach 1. You're going to want the straight in, hit enter, all the way down, activate, and then you get a warning that obviously it's not going to give you obstacle clearance. Go ahead and accept that. Okay. And now you see the aircraft is actually starting a slight turn to the left because it's going to this new final approach fix located about 2.5 miles off the runway. And it says at that fix, we need to be at 837 feet. So we can go over to PFD1, and now we can set an altitude of 800 for it because it's saying 837. And now it's figured out that we have a top of descent, or we'll start down. We're only at 2,500 feet, around 23 and a half minutes out. It shows that we're going to need 1,000 feet per minute, or 954 as a vertical descent rate. We should be able just to use the VNAV down. It almost becomes like a VFR RNAV approach. So we should be able to use VPath, but in case we don't configure it correctly, or we make a mistake, or we get some sort of simism, which I've had, then we could choose around 1,000 feet per minute, and it should get us right over 837 feet at that final approach fix. And at that point, we should have all of our flaps in, our gear down, so the aircraft should be basically trimmed out. So when we knock off the autopilot, because it's going to want to level us out at that altitude. So once we get down to that altitude, we can knock off the autopilot. The aircraft should be basically trimmed out, ready to land, and Should make the landing much, much easier. All right, so the next thing I want to do is just come down here, close those cowl flaps. I think we're still on the fullest tank. Effectively, it's almost the same. So we took off with mountains in the distance. We're right on the ocean. We've got some sort of kind of like river, delta, flat wetlands area here. So yeah, I think it should be a lot of fun flying. That was hopefully the point. We get some challenging flights in here. All right, so we have another 23 miles to go or so. So I think what I'll do is I'll just rejoin you as we get closer towards the top of descent, and then we can see the rest of the approach. I think normally, obviously, I think for some of these approaches, I know a lot of people like to enjoy the flying, but we've already had like a long time for the setup. We'll also have to go through a little bit on air at the end here, and so I don't want to take up too much of your time, but I'd like just to go ahead and progress through this episode so everyone who I know might be following along, who might be using OnAir for the very first time, can see everything they need to see. All right, so I will check back in with you as we get a little bit closer.
A few moments later.
All right, everybody, back with you. If we look down here, just about 3 minutes out from top of descent. Obviously, we're not very high, so it'll be fairly quick. And once we get over the final approach fix, like I said, 2.5 miles out from landing. I know Microsoft Flight Simulator 2024 has had a bit of a rough start. People give it a lot of crap, I think deservedly, especially from the launch. I'm not entirely sure that this game was needed or that the improvements are enough to exceed what we had in 2020. But I will say that I am somewhat impressed, moderately impressed, right? Flying over some of these remote areas, you find like a single dirt road, multiple huts, shanties, almost looks like from the air, which is probably a little bit true to life. So I definitely think it's very impressive what they've done. And obviously comparing it to 2020, where we had a plethora of add-on products, Fidelity aircraft, great scenery packs. Actually, Cartagena, one of the reasons I actually chose Cartagena, was one of the very first airports that came out with in 2024 that had an airport scenery pack. So I installed that. But obviously, as this game progresses, it's just going to get better. So, I don't want to sound like a fanboy, but on the other hand, it is somewhat frustrating when you hear people like, just uninstall it, it's horrible. This is gaming in the modern era, right? It just stuff is not going to be released in its final finished form. And we've seen that now for the last 15, heck, maybe 20 years. So I think these teething problems were to be expected. I am not going back to 2020, primarily because I don't want to go through the entire install process. All right, enough of that talk. All right, so as we look on our PFD here, we see that the white diamond is beginning to move down. So let's come over here and select vertical nav. Check our PFD. Did it take it? It did. So we have VPath in white, which means it's selected but not active. And we will be there in about 20 seconds or so. So because this is such a close-in approach, as I've mentioned before in other videos, operating up here at 175 knots in the yellow arc VA is totally fine. I see a lot of other YouTubers trying to avoid that like the plague. And I'm not throwing shade at anybody. Most YouTubers aren't, in fact, actual pilots. But it is totally okay to operate in that regime. Now, the caveat being is you can exceed some structural limitations if there is turbulence. And as you're seeing here, we're starting to pick up a little bit more as we're getting a little bit closer. All right, and as I was making my slight little rant there, we've switched over to now active vertical path. It's in green. We see that we're actually starting our descent. And so as we start our turn here onto final, I'm just going to pull out a little bit more power because the first notch of flaps in the Bonanza is 154 knots, which we have. All right, so let's put my track IR on. Put in our first notch of flaps. All right, they've gone in. All right, there's the airport. The distance as it's making its turn, which was over 90 degrees. So still pretty impressive that I was able to do that, I think. All right, we're coming up on 1,200 feet. So a couple more feet to go. So let's go ahead and get our gear down. Like I said, we could wait a little bit longer, but I think to make your life easy, let's see if we get the aircraft all configured out. In the airlines, we have to be fully configured by the time we hit 1,000 feet right here at this point, because a stabilized approach makes for good landings. All right, coming up on 800 feet now. Speed's really starting to slope, which is fine. And you're going to see right here, it's going to hold 840, which is fine. We'll hold this for just a little bit till we get the angle. If we continue down from here, it might be a little bit shallow, but let's go ahead and see. Really nose starting to pitch up there. Nose over just a little bit. We're picking up a lot of turbulence down here. Not sure if I'm going to get my applause. As we all know, that's one of the things I love about FSR Realistic. I kid, but it does. I really enjoy the extra sounds, the aircraft shudders and vibrations for real life. Highly recommend FS Realistic. All right, kind of on path now. Looking for around 80 knots while I was yippity yapping with you guys. I got a little bit slow. We'll just pick up a bit more speed. If you're flying a light plane like this and you are doing a visual approach like we're doing, you should have a sync rate, I don't know, around 500 to 700 feet per minute. But you know, you're kind of on the typical 3-degree glide path, approach path on the way in. All right, speed's 80 knots. That looks good. A little bit high here, but we have a lot of runway. If I was in the jet, I'd be doing a go around. Get the nose pointed straight ahead, start rounding out our flare a little bit, and let's cut power. Let's see if I can stay on the center line. Good God. All right. Okay, there we go. Feel better now. All right, let's not overdo it. All right, so that's our very first flight as an owner in the bag. Make my way over to center line here. I was going to take it down to the GA ramp, but we'll just bring it right into here. Park with the big boys. I'm sure they won't mind. It does remind me of flying in Costa Rica. It's a very small little airport. You got these small little private planes, and no one talks on the radio. So you're taxiing, your big Airbus, and someone just cuts right in front of you with their little Piper. All right, we are on the ramp now, so I think we're just totally good to stop right here. I'm sure where they'd love us to stop. All right, let's turn off my track IR. All right, let's kill it.
Engine off, time logged. The flight is finished. It has been monitored by OnAir.
All right, we went up another level. Let's get off all of our lights, turn off the Oh, that sounds wonderful. Turn off the aircraft, pause our track IR, and call it a flight. Okay, so once again, this is our normal tracking screen. How did I do? What did I miss here? 5%, safety bonus 4. I don't know what I missed that for. Probably I didn't have the lights except beacon were on at engine shutdown. Okay. So make sure next time turn off all the lights, then the beacon. All right, had it backwards. All right. And come back out to home. We have a little bit more cash. Right there, $1,300. Not as much as we used to. Down here for the skill tree, we have 5 points to distribute. Once again, words are hard. We will do that in the next episode, and we'll decide how we're going to move up the skill tree. And in the following episodes, I think we'll probably plan on, at some point, hiring a AI pilot so we can see that. We will progress and get maybe a larger airplane. Once again, let me know what your thoughts are on what airplane you'd like to see me progress up to. I'm either thinking the Cessna 208 Caravan, the stock one that comes with Microsoft Flight Simulator, or I just picked up the Kodiak 100. It is a more full fidelity. It looks a lot like the Caravan. It's a full fidelity aircraft. I actually torched the engine the first time I attempted to start it. The next 2 times I got hung starts because I didn't know exactly what I was doing. Actually, I think the problem was mostly with my Bravo throttle quadrant, but no one cares. Moving along, or I could move up to a twin. So I think that's probably the next aircraft we pick up. Obviously won't be the next episode or 2, but just give some thought to what everyone would like to see as I move forward. And that is the plan as we move through the rest of the next couple episodes. All right, in any event, that is it for this very first episode on how to set up an actual company in the Advanced Flight tab, flying our first mission. We looked at the skill trees. We also looked at how to rent an aircraft. And once again, I'd like to thank everyone for all their support I've been getting over the last couple months I've been doing this. Really just kind of blown away with how many subscribers I got. Very grateful for all your support. If you like what you see, I appreciate a thumbs up. Subscribe if you like what you're doing or like what I'm doing. And having said that, once again, I will see you all in the next one. Take care for now.